Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Hello, I'm Sergei Khrushchev, and I'm the doctor and I'm professor at the Brown University. I'm son of the former Soviet leader, and I have the privilege to be on the Dr. Sky radio show. I think it's very interesting and very informative. I hope that we'll be here not one time in the future. Спасибо за приглашение на ваше радиопредставление. И это очень интересно и очень информационно. И люди узнают все те новости, которые происходят в мире. И я с удовольствием поучаствую в ваших шоу в будущем.
Welcome back to the exciting show that we call the Dr. Sky Show, with great guests from the realms of astronomy, space, aviation, and weather, with celebrity guests in the mix. And today, ladies and gentlemen, a very special treat for our entire audience as we welcome the son of former Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, Dr. Sergei Khrushchev, and we'll be talking with him in just a few minutes, not only about space, Sputnik, and about the American and Russian relations during this particular current administration. Dr. Sergei Khrushchev is the son of former Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev. He now resides in the United States, where he is a senior fellow at the Watson Institute for International Studies at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. Dr. Khrushchev holds several advanced engineering degrees from the Ukrainian Academy of Science. He earned his Soviet doctoral degree, and he earned a PhD from the Moscow Technical University. In addition, he earned a master's degree with distinction from the Moscow Electric Power Institute. He also holds an occasional professorship at the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island, meaning he is not a full-time professor but does teach there fairly often. Dr. Khrushchev is joining us today and talking about his experiences as an engineer, and also in his capacity worked on cruise missiles for submarine craft, military and research spacecraft, moon vehicles, and the very successful Russian Proton space booster. With that, it's a privilege and honor to welcome Dr. Sergei Khrushchev to the Dr. Sky Show. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes.
It's a privilege for me to speak with you.
It's an honor to have you here on the Dr. Sky Show. We speak, Doctor, about the realms of astronomy, space, and aviation, and all things like that. But I wanted to ask you, in such a position as being one of the children of former Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, tell us what it was like to be living in this very famous family and some of your recollections during the early days of the space program with Yuri Gagarin.
When we talk about recollection, how you can live in the prominent family, you can look at the White House, at the Buckingham Palace, or any others. It's the same in Moscow Kremlin, even we never lived in Kremlin, because you have all this limitation, and you have all the time remember that everybody looking on you, and it is reflected on your father, on your family. So my parents told, don't forget that you are Khrushchev, and you mustn't do this and that and this, and be very careful. And from other side, don't remember that you are Khrushchev, but you are not that Khrushchev, and you have to have your own life.
Yes.
And do your life for yourself and be just a self-made man, what I did when I went to work in the engineering. And I remember very well the Yuri Gagarin when he flew there, and we waited when he was be launched, but nobody knows. Will he return? How he will return? Is it safe to be in space when you have your brain will be affected? So we waited and waited, and at last it was a signal that he is on the ground And he landed safely, and he called my father, and he reported that he's there, and my father told, we will make you a great reception when you will come. And after 2 days, on the April 14, it was sunny and warmy day, he arrived in Moscow on the special plane with the escort of the fighter jets, and then it was in the limo. He just traveled on the cortege from the airport to the Red Square, and all Muscovites were outside. They were on the streets, on the balconies, on the windows, on the roofs of the building. I can compare this celebration with the Victory Day on the May 9 in 1945.
Wow, that's amazing, Doctor. And you yourself, your personal remembrances of Yuri Gagarin, you met him on numerous occasions, I understand.
Yeah, I met him many times, and we met just in the different official events, and he visited our design bureau, and we have some party together, sitting there, drinking good food, drinking vodka, eating good food. He was a very nice person. And it was not for because he was selected because he was such a person, but it happened that he was very good fit to be the first man in space and this the biggest celebrity in the world. From one side, he was the person which did not require special attention. But he accepted special attention very naturally. Even he came not from the prominent family. He was just ordinary Russian family from the Russian small village in the Smolensk region.
Well, Doctor, it's a sad moment in time. We know that he sadly was killed in an aircraft accident not too long after that in Moscow. Is that correct?
No, it was not too long. He flew his flight in the 1961, and he died on the training exercise in 1967.
Oh,
when he wanted and he begged the government to allow him to fly to space second time. And the government told, no, you're too precious, will not permit you. At last they permitted him, and he planned to fly to the moon, and he's beginning his training exercise. And something happened that we think that his plane started to spiraling and then diving, and he did not go out from the diving, and he hit the ground.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It happened time by time.
It's a very sad moment in history. You know, as you know, Doctor, we still celebrate here in the United States, and I'm involved in it, in celebrating Yuri's night, his first mission, of course, the first man in space, as you all know. And what was he, a hero of the Soviet Union? Is that correct?
He was hero of the Soviet Union, and he was hero and have the highest decoration from the most of the countries of the world. I think he had more medals than Brezhnev.
Wow, that's incredible. Doctor, I want to remind our listeners we were listening to the Dr. Sky Show. Great guests from the realms of astronomy, space, aviation, and weather. Our producer, as always, and we thank him, is Richard Dugan of radio station KZSB, AM 1290 in Santa Barbara, California. If you're just joining us, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege and a high honor to have Dr. Sergei Khrushchev, the son of Nikita Khrushchev, the first secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Your father, let's talk about him for just a moment. If I'm correct, sir, he took over after Joseph Stalin. Is that correct?
Yes, he succeeded Joseph Stalin, not immediately, because immediately the Stalin did not name the successor. And so they have the two center of the power, one around my father, another around the Minister of Police, Lavrentiy Beria, who was a very sinister person. Mm-hmm. And the first Beria was in the highest position, but for the months from the March till the June, the other people of the leadership concentrated around my father, and they decided to arrest Beria. What they did, I think on June 24th.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, my father became the most important person in the Soviet leadership, I will say that in such way.
Very interesting story. And if I'm correct, Doctor, your father was very passionate about agriculture and helping to feed the people of the then Soviet Union, correct?
My father was not so, say, he was passionate about agriculture, but the Stalin, in his reign, he destroyed the Soviet agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not enough food. And even in Moscow, if you want to buy bread, you have to stay in line from the 6 o'clock in the morning, because then it will be no bread in the bakery. So the same, it was no living space. The people live not in the apartment, not in the houses, but in the rooms. In one room of the 1,500 square feet can be 6, 7, even up to 10 people living there together.
Yes.
So my father, saw his prime obligation to feed people and to give them space to live. So his priority was agriculture and the building the new apartment building for which he needed to find the new technology. And it was not the building from the bricks, but building them from the panels. That was very unusual at that time. So he concentrated on these two things and spend a time with all of these things.
Dr. Khrushchev, if you'd just give us, as we move forward with our interview, just maybe some of the best recollections of your father, something that maybe people don't know about your father, Nikita, something that you'd share with our audience. What might one of those be?
It is difficult to say, because I wrote 3 big books about my father. They translated in English, so you can read this. Your listener can read this. It is the last book. It is Khrushchev in Power, Unfinished Reform, published 2014, and Nikita Khrushchev and Creation of Superpower, published in 2000, and also Khrushchev on Khrushchev, published in 1990. But the main recollection when we're looking at the Khrushchev like some person that all the time threatening the West and trying to say that I'm bury you, another thing that really he never told this in such a way. But he was the very good father. He like us, we live very close life. I have the brother and 3 sisters. We live together.
Yes.
And he like nature. He was a hunter, and he liked pets. He had the 2 dogs and the cat and the canaries and squirrels. Squirrels were the pet in the Soviet Union. And also the people finding some small cubs in the forests, and they brought to him. So we have the deer like a pet and the fox. And the fox live in our house, near the house in his boring. But he had not very easy relations with my grandmother, because my grandmother grew up in the Polish part of the Ukraine, and she reunited with the family only in 1939. And she has her own, how to say, her own.
Yes.
Llévate más de lo que esperas todos los días con el nuevo McValue en McDonald's. Ahora puedes comprar uno y sumarle otro por $1. Así que cuando tu equipo favorito enfrente a sus rivales, enfrenta a tus antojos con $5 Meal Deals. Y si estás corriendo para alcanzar el desayuno, corre al app para llevarte ofertas antes del cutoff. Tú decides, y con McValue, tu decisión siempre rinde más. Precios y participación pueden variar. BOGO $1 válido para un producto de igual o menor valor. Debe estar registrado en Rewards para ofertas en el app.
Animals.
Oh, I see.
It was the ducks and the geese and the rabbits, but the fox saw that it was his animals too. So he hunted and killed them, and she chased them. So the fox disappeared during the day, and nobody saw him. But when my father returned from the office and went to the walk, and I walked with him, the fox appeared from nowhere and join us, and we walked together, three of us, and then Fox disappeared for the next 3 days. We have the goat there that was also live around, and they were the bodyguards who surrounded the official residence, and they had nothing to do, so they taught the goat to smoke, and the goat became the smoker, coming to the people and just showing them that it want to smoke. Give me the cigarette.
Yes.
So I can say that he was a very good person, and the person who was mostly concerned about improving life of the Soviet people, and he never thought about possibility of the war against the United States.
Well, that's good to hear, Doctor, because now my next question, and then after this, I'd like to concentrate on Soviet and Russian space accomplishments, your accomplishments in the areas of space. But it now brings us to the very interesting period in history that you write so well about, the Cuban Missile Crisis, as you know, sir, from October the 16th to the 28th of 1962. I was a young boy living in New York City, and from my perspective and all the people in my age group, just young students, we were very worried, I'll be very honest with you, that not only would America do something, but the Soviet Union might when it comes to this situation with missiles not only in Cuba, Russian or Soviet missiles, but also American missiles in Turkey. So describe to us this crisis, because did we or did we not really come the closest to potential nuclear war at any time during the Cold War? Was this the time that it could have happened?
The American missiles not only in Turkey, but also in Italy and in the Great Britain.
Oh.
But the biggest problem at that time, and the biggest threat to the world, that it was American psychological crisis, the same as the psychological crisis when the Soviet Union launched Sputnik or 9/11.
Yes.
And it is very difficult to manage psychological crisis because it was the people don't accept it. Any reasons. You cannot stop the mob that is running toward you. Mm-hmm. So Americans were very scared that when these missiles would be ready, Soviet Union launch them against United States, not asking why they will launch them from the Cuban territory, but not from the Soviet mainland. But this is the biggest problem of this crisis, because you have to understand that we live through the many other crises, but they happened far away from the United States.
Sure.
Americans had never enemies at the gates, different from they were lucky in comparison with Europeans or Asian, which have enemies at the gates all that time. Mm-hmm. So they thought that if the other crisis like Berlin crisis or Middle East crisis will spark the war, they will kill each other, but we will watch them on the TV. Mm-hmm. And now they found that we are vulnerable the same as they are. We can be killed, we can be dead. And this created all these problems around the world, because when you are so scared, you can just start the war without real intention. Mm-hmm. And it was very difficult to the President Kennedy to manage this crisis, because you have to manage that people who are don't listen any reasons. And we were lucky that he was a strong leader, and that he did not was not the person who first shoot and then think, that he decided to negotiate. In negotiating, it was a very important thing, because when you're negotiating, you're understanding what is the intention of the opposite side and what is your own vision of the things, and you can present this to the opposite side.
Sure.
And through this, at last, they came to the agreement that it will be good to the both sides, the Soviet Union and Americans, if the Soviet Union will take missiles out of Cuba. Mm-hmm. United States will never invade the Cuban island. And it was very good negotiation. They were very successful, similar to the negotiation around the Iranian nuclear program, because you cannot have everything when you're bargaining. If you're buying the house, you're not pay that price that you wanted to pay, but you are not charged as much as they who are selling you want to charge you. So you have to have what satisfies both sides.
You're correct.
And of course, it was also misunderstanding in the Cuban Missile Crisis, because Soviet Union sent the missiles to Cuba not because they want to change balance of power or attack United States or infiltrate the American sphere of the interests. Because when after the Bay of Pigs, the Fidel Castro declared that he is now is a Soviet ally and he joined Warsaw Pact, the Soviet Union had the same obligation to defend all his allies, the same as Americans. And the Cuba became for the Soviet Union the same as the West Berlin for the United States. Small, useless piece of land, deep inside hostile territory. But if you will not defend, them, you will lose your face as a superpower. And this was the biggest problem there.
Exactly.
Because Soviet Union didn't know how to defend the Cuba. My father told I cannot defend them diplomatically because Americans will not listen me in the United Nations. I cannot use conventional forces because America control communication. We need shock to show Americans that we are serious. And he decided to send their missiles. And it's worked, you see.
Yes, I do.
Cuba still existed.
Well, Doctor, this is very fascinating, but as a young boy, you lived those days in the Kremlin, of course, or near there.
No, I never live in Kremlin.
Okay.
It is one of misunderstanding. I live in the outskirts of Moscow where they have the governmental residence.
Well, thank goodness.
In the Kremlin, they live the revolutionary leaders like Lenin, Stalin, and some others after the revolution, but my father was from second generation and was never lived there.
Understood. Well, thank goodness, Dr. Khrushchev, that the world came to its senses. And I think the simple thing we could both agree on in this interview and many others is that we need to have, with every country in the world, better understanding of their cultures, their missions, and better to be negotiators than to be warriors, obviously, correct?
Yeah, that is true.
Yes.
That is true, because it is very important to understand the nature of our two countries, the nature of the people, and so it was very important. The program of the President Eisenhower, people-to-people diplomacy, when he told when ordinary people will meet other people from the other countries, they will better understand each other, and after that, they will better deal with each other.
I agree.
This program is the beginning of this mutual introduction.
Absolutely. Our special guest today, Dr. Sergei Khrushchev, he's the son of former Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev. Dr. Khrushchev now resides in the United States, where he's a senior fellow at the Watson Institute for International Studies at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. Dr. Khrushchev is kind enough to take some time out of his busy schedule today, recollecting about his experiences with his father, world history, and then, of course, discussing now the importance of the Soviet Union in space and Russia. Doctor, you have a vast background in engineering and aerospace, and I want to congratulate you for all the great successes on the designs that you and the Soviet Union then, and of course the Russian space scientists, have created. Amazing story here, folks. But tell us, Doctor, what's the passion? What was the passion for the Soviet Union for space? This, of course, is amazing to our listeners. Talk about that.
When we talk about passion, it was not really passion, I will say. It was a necessity because at that time in American Congress, they endlessly discuss when we will attack Soviet Union, how many countries we will, cities we will destroy. It depends how many warheads at that time United States had. And the Soviet Union have to defend itself, and that means we have to have ability to retaliate. And my father thought what we can do, and at last they decided to try to build the ballistic intercontinental missile. And they have different designers, but Korolev started to design this missile. And the person who was in charge of this designer, the engineer, he was more interested in launching the satellite in space. So they designed missiles, and at the same time they designed the satellite. And when my father visited Korolev Design Bureau in 1956, and they showed them the missile, and then they brought him to the special corner and show we can launch the satellite. And my father told, yes, it's very interesting. And he was very curious in any innovation, but he told, will not it hurt your real goal to build the missile? They told, no, we will do it. And they launched it on the October 4th, 1957. It was the Korolev behind all the things, because he was mostly interested to do this. And he thought that because it was planning the meeting of the geophysical committee, it was geophysical year at that time, and the Americans will report there about their satellite. He thought that they will report about launching their satellite. So he told to all his people, we have to do it before them. They're meeting on the 5th, we have to launch it on the 4th. And he launched it, and he reported to my father, who was at Kiev at that day, and told, we did it, we're very successful, but we didn't understand what the resonance it will be in the world. We thought it is a great achievement, but...
At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can even finish the bachelor's degree you started in 22 months for $20,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by pace, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
Similar to the many other achievements of our country, including the designing the first nuclear power station, the first passenger jet plane, and some others. So it was 200 pages on the first page of the Soviet newspapers, that saying of the planning of the International Geophysical Year, we did this is a great achievement. But in the world, especially the United States, it was a shock. And it was the headlines everywhere. It was starting the fear in the United States if Soviets launch the Sputnik, so they can launch the missile and they can attack us. And it was very difficult to prioritize how to tell, my dear Americans, we're still much ahead of the Soviet Union. We have our superiority. They will never attack us. Nobody wants to listen to him. So when we look and we see what is this have such psychological and political effect on all these people in the world, it was next day when it was in the first big headlines in the first pages of the Soviet newspapers saying, yes, it is our greatest achievement. And after that, the space became very popular, of course, in the Soviet Union and like everywhere in the world.
Yes.
And we focus on all these things.
Well, you had many Soviet firsts, like Valentina Tereshkova being what?
Valentina Tereshkova, it was the first Yuri Gagarin and Valentina Tereshkova, and the first working on the open space with the Leonov,
sure,
and many others.
The Soyuz mission with Apollo, right? The linking together in space. But these are great Soviet achievements, great Russian rocket, great successes in the Russian space program. And, Doctor, it's an honor to have you here because our audience primarily always likes to hear guests that talk about the history of space, aerospace, and things of that type. And I want to move on, if I may, but one other quick comment. The Sputnik was the satellite with about 184-pound little tiny sphere. But wasn't it not the rocket? It was the R7. How do you say, Semyorka? Was that the rocket?
This Semyorka, that means 7. R7, it was the rocket. R, it's rocket. And the 7, it was just the number of the design.
Mm-hmm. This is interesting.
And it was intercontinental missile.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the capability to launch much bigger payload than American Vanguard missiles and any others, because it was a mistake in the calculation. The Soviet Union built the missile that can carry 3 megaton warhead, and the Americans built the missiles Atlas and Titan, which can carry 3 megaton warhead.
Yes.
But the Andrei Sakharov, later well known in the United States, who was in charge of the building this weapon, he miscalculated 3 times.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And he told that it will be much bigger weight, about 6 metric tons. So the Atlas and Titan missiles had about 90 tons on the ground, and the Semyorka, the R7, have 270 tons. That makes it really not the missile. It never was used as a missile, but as a big launcher, and they was able to launch much bigger payload than any American missile.
Fascinating story, Doctor. It's always a pleasure to have you here talking about these particular subjects. One that I needed to get clarification on, Korolev's rocket, the N1, was allegedly larger than the Saturn V. Is that correct?
No, it was more or less the same, but it's deliver much less payload to the orbit of the Earth, because the Americans can deliver 129 ton on the orbit, and the Korolev N1 could deliver only 95 metric ton, because Korolev has some mistake on his calculation, and he broke his relations with the best engine designer, Mr. Glushko, so he cannot build such efficient rocket engines like it was in the Saturn. So it was much smaller payload that really would not permit Korolev to fly to the moon, even if it will be successful testing N1. It is my assessment.
Interesting, Doctor. A few closing questions here, and again, we appreciate your time. I wanted to ask you about this. As we heard, of course, in America and around the world, that Neil Armstrong on July the 20th, 1969, and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon. Where were you when the moon landing took place, and what was your reaction?
I was in Chernobyl. Do you know Chernobyl?
Yes.
They had there this nuclear power station that blew up in 1980.
Yes, sir.
9, I think. But in 1965, they have there such peaceful river and the forests and the sandy beaches, and we were on the vacation with our friends there, and we knew that Americans will land it on the moon. And one of our friends who worked for the KGB intelligence in Africa, and he brought from there the small telescope. So we look at the telescope in the moon, but we didn't see Americans on the moon.
That's interesting. So you were actually looking at the telescope, hoping to see, of course, we know you couldn't, but you tried nonetheless.
No, we didn't try, but we looked there because it was great success, not only for the Americans, but for everybody in the world. We understood that we want to be the first.
Yes.
But if American the first, we, of course, were envy, but we were also proud for all the humanity.
Well, Doctor, was the Soviet Union close at all, or no, to going to the moon like we did back in '69? Were they close?
I don't think that they were close, because it was the strong confrontation, or we'll say the competition in the Soviet Union. Who will go for the moon? Who will make this design? It will be the Korolev, or it will be the Chalamet. It was two competitive designers who wanted to send the people to the moon, the men to the moon. And it was competition inside the Soviet Union. And it was very strong.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, one of my friends with whom we work and who was there in the committee who were there, he told both of them will prefer American to the first to the moon.
Wow.
But the Korolev design was not really as efficient as it has to be. So I think that even if the Korolev will do everything successfully, he will not able to go to the moon. But if they will decide that Chalamet will be in charge of all this, there will be very big possibility that Soviet Union can launch the men to the moon more or less at the same time.
Yes.
But I will remind you other thing, that it was two projects in the Soviet Union. One to send men to the moon, and then to send the robotic vehicle to the moon.
Yes.
Which was very close to bring the
Luna mission.
samples of the ground back to the Earth.
Yes.
And they launched it just several weeks before, or days before the Apollo.
The Luna mission,
could
right?
not,
Very successful.
just leave the orbit of the Earth, and they delivered there the solar rocks later than Apollo, so nobody remember this, because the Apollo and the project to send the men of the moon was mostly the political project. It was the Kennedy who wanted to show, yes, we can do it, and Americans showed that they can do it. So nobody was interested who will be the second except the scientists.
Exactly. They always want to know who's the first, and I do appreciate it. Doctor, our short interview today, just a few more minutes, and again, appreciate your time. We want to thank our producer, Richard Dugan of radio station KZSB, AM 1290, that is in Santa Barbara, California, for handling all of the production of the Dr. Sky Show. Two quick questions, Doctor, and then I'll ask you to stay on the line after we go to the top of the hour break here. One, you are a United States citizen. It's not every day that we speak to someone so close to one of the former premiers of the Soviet Union, your father, Nikita Khrushchev, but you become a citizen, and this is interesting. Tell us your passion for America now and the things that you're doing today in this world.
I like this country. We came here in 1991 and became citizen in 1999. I'm also the Russian citizen. I have Russian passport and I have American passport.
Yes.
And I want to have very friendly relations between the United States and the Russia. We're really now not in the good shape. And I'm trying to find out what is the most interest of the United States and what is the interest of Russia. From this point of view, my understanding of the national interest of the United States I'm not in favor of the current administration.
Mm-hmm.
And when looking what is the main interest of Russia, I'm not in favor of the Putin administration.
Yes.
So both of them don't like me.
I see. Wow. So maybe, who knows, maybe you can be the eventual peacemaker between the two and bring us
No, I think the peace will come closely, because it was the mistake that this administration want to punish the Russia because they have their own vision of their role in the world.
Yes.
And sooner or later they will understand that it is different, and we have to create the friendship, because the good diplomacy creating friends, the bad diplomacy creating enemies. And now we are bad diplomats on the both sides, on the relations with Russia, on the relations with the Middle East, with relations with Iran, because we cannot go there and say we want to behave different. For example, like the President Nixon did with China, or like my father did with Yugoslavia.
Yes. Well, we need peace in this world, Doctor, and I again salute you for being our guest and hope that cooler heads will prevail. Our special guest, as we say, thank you, and we'll be talking with him in just a few weeks on another radio show that I do. He's joining us in a couple of weeks here as a 1-hour guest in our live format. Dr. Sergei Khrushchev is now, ladies and gentlemen, a senior fellow at the Watson Institute for International Studies at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. His father, of course, the former Soviet premier, Nikita Khrushchev of the Soviet Union. And I want to thank you, sir, for being here on the Dr. Sky Show. Stay on the line with us as we go to this break. And I do appreciate your part in talking about history and the many wonderful books that Dr. Khrushchev has written, not only on his father, but on all serious subjects, whether they be aerospace, space, and, of course, in the world of history and politics. Dr. Khrushchev, thank you for your time today. It's an honor.
Thank
Stay on
you.
the line.
Thank
That concludes this exciting edition of the Dr. Sky Show with great guests from the realms of astronomy, space, aviation, and weather, and like today, special celebrity guests in the mix. I'm sure Dr. Sergei Khrushchev would agree. Dr. Sky reminds everyone to always keep their eyes to the sky.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It was very privilege for me to be on your show.
Thank you, Doctor.